All right, let's dive into a strategy that is an absolute game changer for anyone using AI to code. We're going to talk about how you can finally stop repeating yourself and turn your AI assistant from, a kind of forgetful intern into a legit context-aware expert on your team.
So let's just start with a question that I'm pretty sure is going to hit close to home. Is your AI assistant a total genius one second and then a frustratingly forgetful intern the next? You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? It writes this beautiful piece of code, but then 5 minutes later, it has no idea what your project's architecture is. That's the core problem we're going to solve today.
The best way to think about this is like you just hired a brilliant new developer. This person has incredible raw talent, they know every programming language under the sun, but they have absolutely zero memory of your specific project. Every single conversation, you're starting from square one.
And this AI amnesia, as we're calling it, leads to some really painful stuff. Without that context, the AI makes these local mistakes, code that looks perfectly fine by itself, but completely breaks the larger system. You end up wasting your precious tokens and, more importantly, your time on these endless clarification loops, and you find yourself just constantly explaining the same core ideas about your own code base over and over. It is exhausting.
But what if you could give that brilliant new hire the perfect onboarding packet, a guide that, in an instant, teaches them everything they need to know about your project? Well, that's exactly the idea here. This is the solution to AI amnesia.
So, meet Claude.md. On the surface, it's just a simple Markdown file, but what it does is incredibly powerful. It basically acts as a persistent memory for your AI assistant, Claude. And here's the magic trick. The information in this file is automatically fed into every single conversation, giving Claude that project-specific context it's so desperate for.
I love this quote because it's the perfect way to think about it. Think of your Claude.md file as your AI's constitution. It's not just some notes for you. It's the fundamental set of rules, the patterns and the boundaries that your AI teammate has to follow inside your project. Honestly, this is a huge shift in how we should be interacting with these tools. Now, this constitution, it's not just a single one-size-fits-all document. You can actually provide context at different levels of detail. It's kind of like having a big, high-level company policy handbook, and then a project-specific guide for your team, and then maybe a super detailed cheat sheet for one very specialized task.
So let's break down how this hierarchy actually works. There are 4 different levels. First, you've got a global file for your own personal preferences that you want everywhere. Then, a project file for that team-wide knowledge. And you can even go deeper with directory files for domain-specific rules in a big code base. And finally, a local file for your own private overrides. And here's the most important rule. The more specific level always wins. It overrides the more general ones.
And this table just lays it all out so perfectly. Your global file, that's just for you. It's your personal stuff, so it stays on your local machine, no version control. But the project file, that's for the whole team, so of course you check that into Git. Same for the directory files. And then there's the local file. That's like your personal scratchpad, your secret notes. So you just add that to your .gitignore file so it never gets shared. See? This structure gives you a ton of flexibility.
Okay, so now we know where to put all this information. The next big question is, what do you actually write? What info is going to have the most impact? What do you put in this AI onboarding handbook to really get the best results? Let's get into the essential curriculum.
These are the big 4. You've got to teach it about your project's architecture, how all the directories are laid out. You need to list your specific tech stack, the key libraries and dependencies. Tell it about the essential commands and workflows your team uses to get things done. And, definitely most importantly, you have to warn it about the critical project gotchas.
And these gotchas, this is where you get a massive return on your investment. We're talking about all the weird, non-obvious stuff that trips up every single new developer who joins the team. That bizarre authentication logic, the files that you must never ever touch, that one API endpoint that always needs a specific header. Putting these things in your Claude.md will save you from countless hours of debugging and frustration. Now, this is really important to understand. This is not a set it and forget it kind of task. Your Claude.md file has to be a living document. It's a real investment in your team's productivity that needs to grow and change right along with your project.
So how do you get started? Well, the best way is a hybrid approach.
Don't stare at a blank page. Just use the /init command and have Claude analyze your codebase to generate a starter file for you. Then your job is to step in as the expert curator. You delete all the generic stuff that isn't helpful, and you add that critical domain knowledge that only you and your team possess. Just remember this, deleting is always easier than creating from scratch.
So when should you update it? Well, you should think of these situations as your automatic triggers. Anytime you make a big change to the architecture, add a new tool, or, my favorite, discover a new gotcha, that's your cue. Go update the file. Keeping it current is what turns it into this powerful, compounding asset for your whole team.
So, after all this effort, what's the payoff? Well, this is where we come full circle. By investing just a little bit of time in this onboarding guide, you completely transform your AI assistant. It graduates from being that generic junior dev with amnesia into a truly context-aware senior teammate that actually understands the nuances of your project.
And you will absolutely see the results. These are the signs that you've got a great Claude.md file. You'll just notice the AI makes far fewer silly mistakes. You'll spend way less time repeating yourself. It'll even start suggesting better solutions that are actually aware of your project's constraints and patterns. And the bottom line? The whole team iterates less and you ship features faster. Period.
So there you have it. The framework is clear and the benefits are just huge, which really just leaves one last question for you to think about. What's the very first, most critical gotcha in your current project that you're going to go teach your new AI teammate?